So, very warm welcome and good morning, good evening to everyone, wherever you are. We have a very insightful and important topic today at our hand, which is going to be discussed by this esteemed panel on frameworks in software development. We are going to cover how frameworks are useful right from the beginning of a software development cycle to actual software delivery and how they have emerged and what are good practices, bad practices, and how one can leverage to build a next generation application using software frameworks. With that, let me introduce the panel. Myself, Anuj Singh. I'm working as a lead and I primarily focus on data visualization application development using JavaScript, Node, React, Angular, Vue, and I'll hand it over my to my fellow guest, for introduction.
Hey, thank you, Anuj. Let me start with myself. Hey, everyone. This is Vijay Viradia, and good morning, good evening, based on your location. So myself, a technical project manager, holding certificates in PMP, SAFe, Microsoft, and a certified Scrum Master, having significant experience in digital health, medical device, and healthcare AI. I'm passionate about applying agile project management methodology to enhance healthcare coordination, patient safety, value-based care, and health equity. As a judge for international award like Fierce Healthcare, Globee, Vega, I evaluate AI innovations in healthcare industry. My committed to advancing responsible AI practices and is working towards the thought leadership on integrating agile in public health systems. Yeah, so that's about me. I would like the Sandeep, our fellow leader on this panel, I would like to introduce here.
Yep, thank you, Vijay. That was amazing. So, good morning, good evening, everyone. This is Sandeep, tech lead and also a principal cloud engineer, DevOps engineer with over 12 years of experience in cloud computing, DevOps, and security. My expertise lies in optimizing cloud infrastructure, driving automation, and scaling applications using cutting edge technologies like Kubernetes and multi cloud environments. I specialize in implementing robust CI/CD pipelines, automating cloud operations, and also enhancing cloud security. Throughout my career, I've been deeply involved in cloud native architecture and infrastructure as code, whether if it's like Terraform, CloudFormation, and any other automation tools, helping organizations improve operational efficiency and reduce cost. I also actually contribute to DevOps community, mentoring and also aspiring engineers, and sharing insights into the modern cloud DevOps practices. With that said, I would like to call Sivasis to introduce himself.
Yeah, thank you, Sandeep. Thank you, Anuj. Thank you, Vijay. Thanks, everyone. Good morning, good evening to everyone who are watching our live session here. I am Sibasis, and I have 17 years of experience in the software engineering. My expertise is on the microservices architecture and cloud performance optimization, mostly towards the fintech applications. I specialize in designing, deploying, and tuning scalable high-performance solution across various cloud platforms, ensuring seamless integration and efficiency of complex data incentive financial environments. With that being said, I'd like to thank AITP to give us an opportunity to speak here. And without wasting much time, we would like to start our discussion. So, with my first question is on can someone explain what a software framework is and why it is very important in software development? Vijay, I think you're on mute.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, yes, Subhashish. I think I can take this question. Yeah, so thank you everyone for joining today. And Subhashish has asked very nice question to start this discussions. So let me kick off discussion today with an overview of software framework and their significance in the world of software development. So let me check with the first question. What is software framework? A software framework is essentially a reusable, a pre-written set of libraries, tools, and the best practices designed to simplify the development process for a specific types of applications. Think it is of a blueprint or a skeleton that provides a structural foundations upon which developer can build their applications. This kind of a framework offer predefined templates and components. which significantly reduce the amount of code for developers need to write from the scratch. So it is like helping a lot to the developers. Let me quickly touch base couple of points like how it is positively impact on the software development process overall, the developers and the other leads in the software development. So first point I would like to cover is like it enhance efficiency and productivity. So like frameworks streamline the development process by providing ready-made solutions for common programming tasks. This allows developer to focus more on the unique aspect of their projects rather than reinventing the entire wheel. As a result, project can be completed faster with fewer resources. Second point I want to cover on this like is improve consistency and the standardizations. By following a framework, team can maintain consistent coding standards across their projects. This consistency is crucial for collaboration, especially in the large team, as it ensures that the code is more readable, maintainable, and scalable. Other 2 points I want to cover. The first is like improving quality and reliability, right? So any framework that are typically developed and maintained by experienced developers. It means that it comes with a higher quality and more reliable softwares. For example, framework often include like built-in security feature or maybe performance optimization feature that will help any developer to quickly reuse those features and overall build their quality in their applications. The last point I want to cover the community support because kind of a framework that we are using every day like Vue.js or the React. So it is having a large support all over the world. Developers are currently using that the framework. They are actually adding their day-to-day learnings to the community, responding to each other queries and try to make a big support for all others, all the developers, right? It means that it is the collective wisdom of the community that can be incredibly valuable in overcoming challenges and staying up to date with the latest advancement. So overall, a software framework provides a structural and efficient for foundation for the development perspective with those kind of features. So these are the basic things, but I would like to go little bit deeper in these discussions with like asking a question that are coming in my mind about this panel is like how do framework differ from libraries in software development? So what is the difference like framework versus library?
So let me take this question, Vijay. Thanks for your thoughtful question. So libraries and frameworks are two different paradigm in software development. Library, think of it as set of tools that you can use for building your project any which manner you like. Whereas framework, as you rightly mentioned, provides a skeleton and a well-structured architecture for building entire application. Let me give you a like example of this. For example, jQuery is a very famous library for building user interfaces, but jQuery doesn't tell you how to build the entire project. You use it to update what you're seeing on your web page or your DOM node, or maybe do animations or do any of the next generation stuff. But it doesn't give you a strict uh, outline of performing things. You can do things whichever manner you like. Whereas a framework, on the other hand, uh, is much more strict in a manner where you need to implement the stuff and how you do the stuff. Maybe think of it as, let's say you're building your home. Then library is like set of uh, tools that you can use to build different rooms, different countertops, or anything on your in your home. Whereas a framework is like an entire blueprint where you have pre-built rooms and pre-built kitchen and everything, and you just need to place the stuff uh, according to the design. That way, you have defined architecture. Both libraries and frameworks have their own benefits, and that's why they are so prevalent in current generation. That leads me to a question in my head: is cloud is a buzzword today. So I wanted to ask this esteemed panel: how do the cloud native frameworks like Kubernetes support modern DevOps and CI/CD practices?
That's a good And great question, Anuj. Let me take that question. So I know cloud is leading, like in the industry, like from over like a decade or and more. And like cloud native frameworks like Kubernetes play like a pivotal role in supporting modern DevOps practices by automating key processes that are traditionally manual and error prone. Kubernetes helps in the deployment, scaling, and also management of a containerized application, which is essential in today's DevOps environment, where speed and consistency are critical. And it also simplifies the management of microservices, like Sibasis explained, by providing features like self-healing, load balancing, and also horizontal scaling. So Kubernetes enables continuous integration and continuous deployment and delivery pipelines by streaming the deployment process, allowing teams to deploy, manage, and also monitor their applications more efficiently. So this automation reduces like human interventions most of the time because it saves a lot of time and also accelerates the deployment cycles, and ensures that the applications are reliable and scalable, which are like the core principles of like DevOps. And also, I would like to ask the panel, like, can someone explain like the main differences between, the backend frameworks like Spring Boot or Hibernate JPA? Because any cloud native deployment or any practices related to the cloud, because we all work with any one of the framework, right? So can someone take that question?
Hey, Sandeep, thank you. I'll take that question. Thanks for your intro on the cloud native Kubernetes framework. That's a very good thought on whatever you have told us. Coming on to the backend frameworks, yeah, so that is very important as well. Now, the choice, right? So the choice really depends on the language ecosystem and the specific needs of our project, actually, right? So what are those needs? So it can be performance requirements, it can be scalability, your team expertise, and your long-term maintenance plan. So these are the factors so we can take into consideration. For instance, in the Java world, the default choice in today's is Spring Boot, right? It's a very good, fantastic option. So it's known for its ability to get you started quickly, right, by handling a lot of configuration behind the scenes. So you do not need to worry about any configuration. It's coming right out of the box. Alongside, there are other tools like Hibernate frameworks, right? Like Hibernate, JPA, they are making our work with the database more intuitive, right? Reducing to write more raw SQL queries. So we do not need to worry about the raw SQL queries. So we just go and integrate that framework and everything is out of box. There are also backend JavaScript ecosystem like Node.js and Express.js. They are very popular nowadays. So they are very lightweight, flexible, and we can easily integrate them, right? In if you go to the .NET side of the world, then there is Next.js, right? So there are various frameworks depending on what we need. We can easily use that. So if you ask me, right, there is also a Python framework, yeah, which I forgot to mention about. So Python is Django, right? Django is a very good framework nowadays where everyone go towards it. Why? Because we get our out-of-box authentication, we get easily admin panels, the ORM, everything is ready to use, right? So ultimately, what I could say is that it comes down to matching the framework strengths to our project's complexity and the team's comfort level and our long-term maintenance goals, right? So this is what I can say about the backend frameworks. And thinking more about it, since we have covered all the backend frameworks, another important coming to my mind, important framework is the front-end framework. So without front-end framework, backend is nothing. So I would like to ask our panel, what are those backend frameworks, I mean, front-end frameworks, and what are the differences today? What are those frameworks and how we can use based on our situation?
Thank you for your question, Debasis. Let me answer it. So this question helps us visualize the entire application from the backend and the front-end perspective. So it pays a lot of importance to sort of understand the front-end frameworks along with the backend frameworks. There are three main frameworks and libraries that are very famous in front-end web and mobile application development ecosystem today. Uh, React is the most famous of them. React was developed by Facebook, and since its launch, it has gained a lot of popularity not only in web applications, whereas also in the mobile applications through um, React Native as well. However, React even today stays as a library, and its main job is to allow users to build reusable components using one-way data binding. And the core principle of React is centered on. And React actually doesn't tell you how to entirely architecture or application. So you need other third-party libraries to sort of handle routing and state management and everything to actually make it as a full framework driven development. On the other end, the second most famous framework, Angular, which was developed by Google, is a fully featured framework. It provides all the building blocks for building your entire application, and it provides all the good things that you can think of from framework like dependency injection or calling APIs through HTTP and state management and a lot of those niceties. And due to this robustness, I have seen that a lot of financial companies actually use Angular for their choice of front end development. Now, the third an emerging framework is Vue. Vue has been coming into its own lately, and Vue tries to make a good balance between what React does and what Angular does. It is a framework, but it is less opinionated than Angular, but it provides more structured outline than React. It provides built-in state management and routing and on those good stuff. And it's the one of the good things about Vue is it's focusing highly on the developer ecosystem. So the choice of framework that you use for your front-end application matters a lot with the kind of application that you want to build. For example, if you want a very performant application where you need low level control over your application, then React is a good choice. But if you have a large team in an enterprise uh, structure, if you want to sort of develop with distributed teams, Angular Angular is very famous. And if you want to have the best of both worlds and still want to be aligned to good development experience, Vue is gaining a lot of popularity. So with that, I want to ask this esteemed panel a question. We have talked about this a little bit, the benefits of frameworks, but I want to understand more in detail what are some key benefits of using frameworks in software development.
Yeah, sure, Anuj. I can take that up. And thank you for explaining like three major framework that you explained, like Angular, Vue, and the React, right? So Vue is like in the middle part, and I think that will help our audience to choosing that and the selecting and the choosing out of three framework. Yeah, and I think all three are like developed by the bigger companies. So I think very much uh, good to use that one. Yeah. Yeah. So let me explain the question that you're asking for about like the key benefits. So I already explained a little bit about the benefits regarding like leveraging the framework. The benefits are like developer can enhance their productivity, maintain consistency, ensure quality, and benefits from the support like a vibrant community, right? So I think that we already covered. So let me take this answer in the different aspect like a cloud, right? So today the cloud is like everywhere and every applications are currently using the cloud. So let me explain this question in a way that how it is useful for the cloud community when using that the frameworks, like. So let me explain this into the like a couple of points. Let me check with the first point is like seamless cloud deployment, right? So modern framework are designed with cloud integrations in mind, making it easier for developers to deploy application like AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud. And most of this framework are developed by these giants So I think they are already compatible with all this their cloud. Yeah, so that is the first point that I want to cover. Second is scalability and performance, right? So cloud environments offer scalable infrastructure. Frameworks often include tools and configuration to optimize applications and cloud scalability, right? As you already said, like um, the React that has been developed by the company that is already cloud compatible, right? So any instance like they provide support for the load balancing, auto scaling, efficient resource utilizations, ensuring that applications can handle increased user traffic and data loads. The third point I want to cover in this cloud is the cost. Like cost is the very much a concern for all the organizations and even developers as well. So like organizations are pay to the cloud as pay as you go model, right? So allowing organization to only pay for the resources they are using, right? So framework that integrate with cloud services help developer to optimize those resources usage there and reducing the operating cost, right? Other is like a built-in cloud services. So many cloud providers often wide range of services like managed database, serverless computing, storage solutions, right? So framework that are cloud aware often provide built-in support of these services, simplifying an integration process. So you can usually integrate this managed services from this AWS or Google or maybe Microsoft, right? Another part is like security and compliances. So cloud platform invest heavily on the security side, protecting the data, and then those frameworks that are designed for the cloud environment are typically included the security features. It includes like encryption, authentications, compliance with industry standards, as Sebas already suggested that, right? So by leveraging that cloud integrated framework, developer can easily and ensure that their application meets security and regulatory requirements. And the last point I want to touch base about the disaster recovery and business continuity, right? So that is a critical aspect for any applications. As a developer, I always try to find out like how can I solve those kind of a problem that is not a day-to-day a challenge, right? So feature like automated backup and the multi-region deployment help safeguard data and ensure that applications can quickly recover from unexpected incidents. So these are the like 5 to 6 different points that I would like to share today about this cloud integrations activity. So now with this, I have a question in mind and I would like to ask this panel about like what role do framework play in building scalable and cloud native applications?
Yeah, thanks for the brief explanation, Vijay. I think I can take that question. So the frameworks, like in today's world, right, like play like a crucial role in building scalable or like any cloud native applications, like might be in AWS, Azure, or might be in on-prem. So any applications like providing the structured foundation, right? Like that accelerates the deployment and also the development, ensures also the maintainability and facilitate the seamless integration with cloud services. And in also in the context of like cloud native architectures or like the frameworks help developers adopt the best practices, for distributed systems, might be the microservices or like the containerization world. So by abstracting like the complex and the repetitive task, frameworks allow developers to focus on like a business logic, not just writing the code that like for the framework. It focuses on the business logic and also the application features rather than like low level infrastructure management. I'll take an example, right? So frameworks like Spring Boot and Django, which we've been talking a lot, right, in this call. So like they are actually giving like the simplicity or the simplify the process of creating the microservices by offering built-in components for routing, data management, and also for the security. All of these which are like crucial for building the scalable applications. And also in addition, frameworks help manage the scalability and also the performance by supporting the key cloud native principles such as like elasticity, the fault tolerance, and also the parts like any the scalability and horizontal scaling or might be the vertical scaling. So they enable the applications to efficiency handle the increased traffic and also the workload by providing tools like for auto scaling, load balancing, and also monitoring, which are really essential in the cloud environments like AWS, Azure, or GCP. So ultimately, frameworks ensures the cloud native applications are not only faster to build, but are also like highly reliable, maintainable, and also scalable. To the real world with dynamic and evolving the needs of the modern cloud infrastructure. So with that said, like I have a thought in my mind, ask the panel, how should like a development team, go about choosing which framework is right for the project? Like, can anyone take that question?
Yeah, thank you, Sandeep. Let me take that question. So that's a very interesting question, right? So
Yeah.
if you ask me, right, based on my experience, I'll always leave it to the architect to decide on, okay, what is the better framework for a project? No doubt the developers or the team leads will definitely give their opinion, but the final call, my preference is always let the architect decide based on what is the best option for choosing the right framework. Right. And that is also a very critical decision, right? Especially in industries like if it is fintech, telecom, or healthcare, where security, scalability, and performance are very important in that organization, right? If we take an example of fintech projects, right, framework must not only support a rapid development, but also it should adhere to the strict compliance requirement. For example, PCI data or payments or GDPR for data protection, right? So these are very crucial aspects when we try to decide on which framework to use. I'll still touch upon on the fintech backend development, where your frameworks like Spring Boot plays a very crucial role and is highly recommended because of its robustness, scalability, and support for complex enterprise grade applications. They also integrate they seamlessly we can integrate with other tools for secure authentication, transaction management, and database handling as well. Similarly, there is Nest.js or Express.js in the Node.js ecosystem that can be an excellent choices for lightweight API-driven architecture, which are common in microservices in fintech. On the front end side, also, I would like to touch upon React. That is a very good and to-go framework nowadays for every um, modernized application, right? Beyond the technical capabilities, teams should also evaluate on the frameworks on their support for integration. For example, right, when if there are projects that is connecting to third-party APIs, payment gateways, or it needs regulatory platforms, right? We need to consider all these things as well. Finally, I would like to say the framework, whenever we are choosing, we should also think about the community support or the vendor support for that software which we are going to use. That also plays a very key role. And also, we should also consider about the lifespan and the scalability whenever we decide. A robust framework like Spring Boot or React is a well suited for long-term fintech projects that always demand scalability and reliability, right? So now let's go and do some deep dive, right, on the selecting the framework. So since we are talking about the projects, we have long-term and short-term projects. So my next question would be, what are the factors we should consider while selecting a long-term and a short-term projects?
Yeah, yeah, Sebastian, I can take that question. So, as a project manager, I always have a discussion with my architect and the other project leads. As you said, architect is the first person who actually decide this one. So I always have the discussion with him, like what should we choose, like and when should we choose, and we discuss couple of points. So let me explain. This factors, and I will provide like a comparison between a factor with a short term and the long term the project, right? So the first factor I would like, and always I check with my team and my architect, is that what is the durations and the complexity of the project, right? So as a project manager, generally I know the durations what customer wants, but complexity is much more a question to my architect. and the team, right? So for the long-term project, it is essential to choose a framework that offer robust features, scalability, and strong community support, right? So this project often evolve a complex requirement or evolving needs. So framework with comprehensive documentations and proven track records can help ensure maintainability. Right. While the short-term project can focus on quick implementations and the ease of use, right? So any lightweight framework that require a minimal setup can help over here, right? So for the short-term project, the goal is deliver functionality rapidly without getting down to unnecessary complexity with using the out-of-box kind of features. So another point that I generally check with my customer about and my team as well, like the scalability and the performance of the requirement, like how they want to scale this as a number of users or the resources, right? So for the long term music, we totally understand that it's a long term. There must be a scalable. The framework is required. Scalability is a crucial part over here, right? So we should choose a framework that support this kind of a scalability and growth. Kind of like user base or maybe the functionalities or maybe the resources, right? So any framework that having the built-in feature of kind of a performance optimizations or scalability that can be much more useful for kind of a project, right? If it is a considering the short-term project, right, the performance is still the critical factor for them, but scalability may be not a primary selection, right? So any framework that offer decent performance and out of box features is available that utilize that help to understand my use case, I think that is good enough to start with. Another point, like I think the both Subhashis and Sandeep has covered about the community and ecosystem, right? So long-term project, there might be a duration of time, might be a lot of use cases, a bigger team. We might need a strong communication community and the support. Like if we have a framework that we need to choose, we need to think about this kind of a feature. Like, is the community available? Are we getting the response? Right. So that is a critical factor while choosing that one. For the short-term project, yes, community support is also required and beneficial, but the major priority for the short term is that they have a simple use cases or the like small use cases, right? So maybe it might not that require that level of the support from the community, right? Because they are looking for a quick implementations, right? And the fourth aspect that I like to cover is the learnings, right? Like for a long-term project, right? If you have a big team, we can invest some time for learning a framework, right? But for the short-term project, I would rather say like, okay, any out-of-box features or any quick implementation is possible, available that maybe I should go and choose with. And first, and the last point I want to cover about the integrations, right? So my long-term project might be a multiple use case. I need to cover like three different kind of a systems. While my short-term projects, it's a small use cases, not required to connect like almost all the other systems. Then in that case, like I would choose a framework that have a minimal integrations or minimal features that can be useful. Yeah. So these are the like five different factors that we can think about while selecting a framework for a kind of a project, either is a long-term project or the short-term project. Like you can think about the scalability, community support, what is the learning curve, or maybe integrations requirement. Yeah. So with this uh, team, like I want to understand like how do framework fits into the broader field of software engineering? Yeah. So that probably the questions coming up in my mind.
So thank you for your thoughtful question, Vijay. And this is a very important question to understand from the overall structure. So let me break this question's answer into three different parts. First part is being the engineering best practices. Frameworks have been developed by so many brilliant engineers with a lot of debate and thoughtfulness, and then they decide on specifications of how a framework should work. That's why we see a lot of these frameworks boast best engineering stuff like dependency injection, code modularity, separation of concerns. So they are like a culmination of engineering excellence. The second aspect is this engineering excellence provides a great project and code governance when you're actually developing your enterprise application. You have best practices aligned of how the code patterns would look like, and then you have the easier team collaborations because of this, and then you'll have teams that are sort of able to gel together and focus on maybe something like which is very critical like unit testing and doing quality assurance, and you're able to build a seamless project using frameworks. So the third part is what all these things actually culminate to. These things actually provide you a lot of business value, which is very important for the current ecosystem. You want your project to do well and provide a lot of value to the company. And for that reason, these frameworks allow the engineers to focus on actually building the business features rather than spending too much time on figuring out low level details, solutions that already been problems that already been solved and the solutions are available. For example, how to do routing in large web applications. You have a lot of pages, lot of interactions between pages. And some of these frameworks like Angular or Vue provide the built-in routing mechanism. So now the business teams as well as the engineering teams can sit together and debate more about the actual features they want to present, which will generate the revenue, customer satisfaction, and 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 those kind of business KPIs. You know, so and this makes it easier for projects to move faster and integrate emerging technologies like cloud. Uh, Talking about cloud, it a question that pops in my head, and I feel like our expert on cloud, Sandeep, can help us understand is what are the some key factors that we can consider when we are considering the cloud native frameworks?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Anuj. So, when choosing like a framework for cloud native development, right, there are several factors to it, to consider to ensure it meets the specific needs of our projects and also supports the long-term scalability, efficiency, and also the adaptability required for cloud environments. So first, right, like let's talk about the scalability. Scalability is essential in cloud native environment or cloud native deployment. The applications must able to scale seamlessly to meet the various demands. A good framework should support the horizontal scaling, the vertical scaling, meaning it should allow you to easily add more instances and delete instances after the peak traffic has been gone down, and the components to handle the increased traffic without major changes to the application architecture. This is particularly important in cloud native applications where demand can fluctuate, right? Because I'll take an example like for any Thanksgiving or any Christmas, week, the traffic would be peak, and after that, I think it goes down. So it has to scale accordingly, and also, this is like particularly important in cloud native. The applications may demand can go up and down. For example, like I just said, like I'll take another example, like the frameworks like Kubernetes provide built-in feature, right, like auto scaling, which you can automatically scale your application based upon the real-time demand. And the next, right, like let's talk about the ecosystem compatibility, and this also plays like a crucial role. Cloud native applications often rely on multiple tools and also services for continuous integration and continuous deployment, monitoring, the logging, and even more. So when choosing the right framework that ensures, that integrates well with other essential tools in your development ecosystem. For instance, it should work well with your CI/CD pipelines, whether if it's like Jenkins or GitLab CI/CD or the Circle CI, and also monitoring tools such as Prometheus, Datadog, or EKS, or ELK, or any other monitoring system that also goes same with the databases. And the community support is also another important factor to consider. Frameworks with a native and also the well-established community means that you are directly relying on the continuous upgrades, improvements, and the bug fixes. You have to be prepared for any kind of upgrades that are necessarily going to happen. And this helps, this is especially important in cloud native development, also cloud native deployment, because it's all like, we are being moving towards the open source developments, and we have to keep on updating or keep up to the date to the any upcoming bug fixes or any improvements. And also frameworks like Spring Boot per se or like Kubernetes, have larger communities and strong commercial support, which makes them like more reliable choices for long-term projects. And finally, the performance is also like plays a key important pivotal role. A good framework should ensure that resources are used effectively and also optimizing both cost and also the performance. This includes making sure that the frameworks can handle large amount of traffic, right? Like in today's world, to process the data quickly and also minimize the overhead. For instance, like frameworks like Kubernetes can help manage resources across the cluster efficiently, and also criticality of the applications also plays like a pivotal role on any cloud native development, as the cloud cost can quickly spiritual, it can go up without the proper resource management. And with that said, I would like to talk about one other question that I got popped up, right? Like, can anyone highlight like a specific framework that has like significantly impacted the software development in the recent years?
Hey, Sandeep, yeah, let me take that question. So thank you for
Okay.
your uh, high insight on the choosing the framework on the cloud native
Sure.
platform, right? So if you ask on that perspective, right, I would always go in the Java wall. It's a Spring Boot, right, for which helps on our TLM activity, which we were discussing few days back, right? How important that is for to do the TLM activity every year. So which plays a very crucial role. So I'll not take much time. I will just take a give some brief point about that, right? So TLM is nothing but it's a technical lifecycle management, right? Which is often advisable to do yearly, so that we ensure the security is intact, the performance are improved, the software compatibility also is in a good shape, right? So this challenge, so the challenge in fitting these upgrades into ongoing development, we should also think that it should minimize the disruptions as well. So it's a very important challenge, and also at one point we are developing the things, at another point we have the challenge of TLM. So to tackle this effectively, I have few points. The first one is like we need to plan some incremental upgrades, right? So we should not skip multiple versions. We should do an incremental upgrades. Smaller regular upgrades are easier to manage, so that we can test and roll out easily. And Spring Boot is the best for those instances which provide migration guides, and it's a very simple process, and it simplifies the process as well. Second point is we can leverage our automated testing. So before upgrading, we should ensure that we have a strong unit tests and integration tests in place. So that gives us a very confidence that existing feature won't break down. And always it is advisable to integrate our upgrade into CI/CD pipeline. So running builds and tests against the upgraded version in a staging environment always helps us identify and fix issues early, so that our deployments are smooth. And another important feature is we should always be prepared for backward compatibility, right? So you should always validate any deprecated configurations or features, okay, and update them proactively to avoid surprises during the deployment time. And it's always advisable communication. Communication and training the team is very important, right? So framework upgrades often bring new features and improvements. So sharing knowledge ensures the team can fully utilize these updates and they remain proactive. Right. So by treating this framework upgrade as a plan and recurring part of the TLM, teams can stay modern and they can secure and aligned with industry's best practices. Right. So speaking about all these, I mean, I one question is coming up into my mind that how agile methodologies, right, can be influenced to use this in our development frameworks.
Okay. Yes, Subhashish, I think let me take that question as I generally did as a role as like Scrum Master, Agile coach, even as a project manager for my couple of projects. So let me deep dive into how adoption of agile methodologies have significantly influenced the use of development of framework in an overall software developments. So, and I will cover this in like a couple of agile framework or methodology practices. Like the agile methodology emphasis on iterative development, correct? So where the projects are broken down into manageable, incremental, and kind of known as a sprints, right? So this approach has encouraged the creation of frameworks that support rapid development cycles. Framework like Ruby on Rails or Angular. And like you already told about the Spring Boots, right? So they are designed to facilitate quick iterations, allowing developers to build and deploy features incrementally. The agile's another core principle is flexibility and adaptability, like that have driven the development framework that can help easily adjust the changing requirements. We know that every day customer is coming up with some new use cases, depends on the new technology and the new requirements from their end users, right? So kind of a framework that often come with modular architecture, enabling developers to add, remove, modify components and without disrupting the entire the system, right? So this adaptability ensure that projects can evolve seamlessly as a new need and the challenge arises. Another agile methodology, critical aspect is like collaborations and communications among the team members. Like frameworks have evolved to support these principles by integrating tools for version control, continuous integrations, and automated testing. For example, frameworks like Django and Laravel come with a built-in support for CI/CD pipeline, facilitating smooth collaborations and ensuring that code changes are continuously tested and integrated. Another aspect that we should not forget, and it is a core part of either of a project management methodology use, that is the quality and the customer feedback, right? So agile practices with strong emphasis on delivering high quality software, right? So this focus led to a development of framework that include robust testing capability, ensuring that code is thoroughly validated before deployment. Frameworks such as React and Vue, already Anu suggested, that has an extensive ecosystem of testing libraries, allowing developers to write unit test cases, integration test cases, even end-to-end test cases as well. That will help to have a code with on high quality aspect. Agile also says that the delivery of speed, right? So efficiently deliver and at the speed deliver at the iterative activities, right? So kind of a framework that support this kind of practices, streamline the development process, reduce complexity, and improve productivity. Like if you can talk about the Flex, that is a Python or Express part of a Node.js, are the lightweight framework that enables developer to quickly build and deploy on the web with minimal overhead. So there are out of box features are there. You can like quickly deliver something at the end of the every sprint, and you can deploy to the production and ready to available for the users, right? And I would like to cover the last point from the agile is that continuous deployment and the DevOps practices and the continuous integrations we are saying, right? So many, almost all the frameworks they're supporting with seamless integrations with DevOps tools and practices, right? So like if I talk about the two major tools that widely used all over the world, it's the Kubernetes and the Docker, right? So both have become essential as a part of Agile toolkit, providing that infrastructure needed for scalable and automated deployment. So these are the quick aspect that I want to talk. That these are the matching with your Agile methodologies and the frameworks that we are using. So with this, like I would like to ask the question to the group, like, so what are the some best practices for working with frameworks to ensure efficient and maintainable code.
I think I can take that, Vijay. Thank you for adding your insights. I think that really helped on like project management side and like how it is actually helping the transformation to the cloud or like to the AI. And let me to actually answer that to ensure efficient and also the maintainability of like a code, right? Like when working with frameworks, following best practices is like crucial. One of the key practices is modularity. So by breaking down the application into smaller independent services, which is known as microservices, right? Like developers can build, deploy, and also scale each service independently. This approach makes like maintenance easier and promotes like a better performance in the cloud environments. And we are all talking about Kubernetes a lot, right? So which is like again a containerization model, and you can have like a different containers like in different, so like each container you can treat it as like an application, and each you can have multiple applications in a container which is a microservices. And also these approaches, right, which is actually makes more easier and also the better performance in the cloud. And another important practice is automation. Automation is like the key, particularly in testing, building, and also the deployment. And automating all these processes reduce like manual intervention, human errors, and also ensures consistency across the environments. And also the documentation also plays like a key in it, right? Because it helps like a future developers understanding the frameworks, configurations, and also dependencies and architectures, which is like easily important in large complex systems. And also doing regular code reviews when a developer writes like a pull request, it's also another best practices to ensure the code goes with the best practices to production with also efficiency and scalability and security. And finally, it's also important to stay up to date with like frameworks with like new versions, like Sebastian was calling out, like the TLM activities is a key in every SDLC process. And keeping the frameworks updated ensures that you benefit from new enhancements, security fixes, and performance improvements. And also, I wanted to ask, like, to the panel, like, this probably, falls under one of the expert. Like, can someone explain or provide some tips for integrating the frameworks with the existing legacy systems, which is also like the legacy systems also like a plays like a crucial role, right? Though with the cloud environments.
Yeah, thank you, Sandeep. Let me take that. Thank you for your insightful thoughts on the best practices which we need to use in adopting the frameworks. Yeah, coming to the legacy system, yeah, that's a very important aspect now as most of the industries are moving from legacy to cloud and cloud to
Yeah.
framework. So that transition is now in progress. So it's a very important aspect to take into consideration, right? So integrating modern backend frameworks with existing legacy system, it can be challenging, and but it is also highly rewarding, right, when it is done correctly. So I'll provide some key tips to make some this process smoother and more effective. So first, we can start with a clear assessment of the legacy system. We need to identify its strength, its weakness, and dependencies. So that will help us determine which part of the system can remain and which can be modernized. So we know that at a time we cannot modernize everything, so we need to go slowly step by step. For example, if we are working with a monolith architecture, frameworks like Spring Boot or Nest.js can be incrementally help us transitioning to a microservices architecture without moving everything at a once, right? So next we can focus on building bridges through the APIs. Many modern frameworks excel at creating RESTful APIs, making them ideal for establishing communication between the legacy system and the new components. So using tools like Hibernate with JPA in Spring Boot right? That can help us abstract complex database interactions, allowing us to modernize our data. Another important aspect is choosing the integration strategy, right? For instance, adopting a strangler pattern. So there are various patterns. So we need to choose the correct pattern so that legacy systems can be easily transitions to the modern. Finally, I want to say on the testing. So we need to always prioritize the testing and monitoring during this integration process, which is very important. Legacy systems are often mission critical, so maintaining uptime and minimizing the disruption time is very key, right? So frameworks with built-in testing and monitoring tools like Spring Boot Actuator can be a very valuable asset, right? So that's all I wanted to say about the legacy system migration. So I would like to now hand over to Anuj so to speak briefly about all our talks and have some closing comments on it. Anuj, yeah, you're on mute.
Thank you, Shivashis, for your thoughtful remarks about legacy systems and everything. So what I see is industry is and the technologies in the software industry are emerging, and we are going towards a brighter future where we see stuff like what Sandeep mentioned, microservices and distributed systems are coming into picture. Now, these things are evolving the frameworks around them as well. So our frameworks are continue to get modern, and we see a lot of rise in AI and ML practices. We see a lot of rise in generative AI and new technologies around it. So I'm sure in future we will see more and more enhancements to the frameworks themselves, which are going to make software development even more faster and even more robust. And people will be able to create valuable products faster. Along with all of this, right, there is a lot of focus on developer experience as well. A lot of frameworks, like for example, White, that's a brainchild from the same team who built Vue, right? They focus a lot on development best practices, building it faster while you're coding it. Stuff like hot code reload and faster re-rendering and Angular's just-in-time compilation. All of these features are letting people build software quickly, along with other advances we are seeing. Uh, I remember still days when we make few line changes in the code and then we had to restart the server to see it reflect. It was pretty slow, and it's just amazing to see with the newer tools like White or Webpack how far we have come into, for example, the Node.js and JavaScript ecosystem. What I see, and I'd like to sort of put this to a full picture, is all of these things are sort of giving rise to something we call as meta frameworks, which are trying to incorporate a lot of these good things into one place. For example, we discussed briefly about Next.js. It's taking the best practices of React, plus it's giving you the way to handle your APIs and giving you uh, good developer experience. So you have the full life cycle of development and deployment and building built into this meta frameworks. With that, I think we are almost at the top of the hour. So I want to thank AITP for bringing us together and giving us an opportunity to share our thoughts on frameworks, where they are today, how they're helping the industry, and where we see them going forward in the future. I'm sure our listeners had a wonderful time uh, listening to all of the experts. I personally want to thank Vijay, Sivasis, and Sandeep for their thoughtful answers and very insightful answers, answers which can be used for practically implementing the solutions. With that, final thing I want to mention, all of our experts are available on LinkedIn, and if you guys have any further question, uh, feel free to reach out to them. They are very nice people and they're always looking to help. Thank you, everyone, and have a nice rest of your day. Bye bye.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
everyone.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye bye.